Hello everyone, this is Flix here, and today we'll be talking about a science fiction film called Mafia, the game of survival. There will be some spoilers after this. In the not-too-distant future, Mafia, a well-liked game show, has captured the interest of everyone in the globe, but no one is aware of its true originator. There are always 11 players in the game, 9 of them are citizens and 2 of whom are mafias. The opposition may murder a person every night. Thus the public must discover the names of the mafias in order to win the game by voting the suspects out. Regardless of who wins, the winning side will get $1 billion, while those who lose will suffer a terrible end. The inventor invites the participants to identify themselves after giving everyone their roles, with an elderly guy named Luca leading the way. It soon becomes clear that he is really a highly successful businessman who has become wary of normal life and gambles everything, even his own life. His offspring, who serve as his sole family and are poised to steal all of his money, are his only relatives. But the elderly guy tells everyone that he's not a mafia, although they are unaware that Luca has already signed away his money and the kids would never get a single dime after his death. Ilya, the next player, asserts that he has nothing to lose since he has terminal cancer and will pass away in 3 months. He chose to play this game in an effort to provide for his family before passing away, but his wife would rather that he spend his last days with her rather than pass away in public. The third and fourth contenders are shortly introduced, and the announcer informs the gamers that these two are really competing for something else. It turns out that these individuals are violent criminals who choose to participate in this game in an effort to regain their freedom. Ivan, the younger guy, tries to convince everyone that he was wrongly condemned, but Mr. Butcher, the other criminal, just laughs in his face. Like the previous contenders, the others start by introducing themselves and saying that they are simply ordinary citizens. As soon as everyone has finished speaking, the announcer starts the countdown because the participants must now decide who they believe to be the true mafia. The participants begin to argue and insult one another as a result, but a lady named Mary advises them to stop wasting time. The girl chooses to go by her first impressions and blames a guy by the name of Kirill since no one knows who the murderers are. Another guy named Peter concurs straight away and urges everyone to cast their ballots promptly. But Mr. Butcher soon intervenes after seeing Mary in a television program. He also recalls that Peter was notorious for attempting to seduce the lady in order to become her biggest admirer, making them possible collaborators. It doesn't take long for it to become clear that Mary was once a well-known dancer whose career was ruined by an accident that left her unable to walk. After she lost her dancing talent, her renown swiftly faded, and she was unable to afford the pricey prosthetics. Because there was no other option for her to reclaim her life as a result, she was forced to play the Mafia game. Peter acknowledges that this is accurate after realizing their cover has been broken, but he reassures the participants that they are not collaborating as mafias. The populace finds this hard to believe and starts to support the lady universally, which leads Mary to accuse Peter of being responsible for everything as she breaks down and sobs. The guy attempts to rescue the girl by claiming to be a member of the Mafia, but the others are not persuaded and Mary is swiftly thrown out. The crowd is astonished to learn that the lady is really a civilian when she is compelled to raise her hand and announce her true identity. The woman's chair suddenly starts to move, bringing her closer to the black orb and finally swallowing her whole body, rendering her comatose. Mary is soon carried into an area where it is raining and there are thunderclouds, and the lightning is falling violently from the sky. The lady is being pursued by the energy as she frantically runs through the woodland, hoping to escape with her life. Mary is compelled to stand on a cliff as the lightning gets closer. She has no option but to jump off since the electricity would eventually kill her. The gamers know that this may ultimately be their destiny as well as her corpse is reduced to dust within the black sphere as the empty chair is pushed back into the platform. As darkness falls over the city and the mafias may assassinate a citizen without the other players knowing, the designer is unimpressed with the players' decisions. The mafias have already decided who will be murdered when the lights in the building come back on, and it doesn't take long to figure out that Mr. Butcher will be the next casualty. The guy becomes enraged and yells obscenities at the other players as a consequence, but Peter seems pleased with the outcome as he assigns guilt for Mary's passing to the criminal. As quickly as possible, the other guy enters the dark sphere as well, and Mr. Butcher is then transported inside a big structure alone, where many spectators are standing on balconies to applaud. The criminal instantly understands he is in danger as the two oncoming guys start kicking him into the ground and attacking him with their weapons. Fortunately, Mr. Butcher is able to respond by starting to engage in dirty combat and killing one of his adversaries. No matter how many times the guy kills the adversaries and reduces them to dust, they instantly regenerate and continue to fight back. The criminal finally manages to permanently dispose of his opponents after several rounds of combat, and in triumph he roars angrily in the direction of the spectators. Mr. Butcher believes he has won, and the other convicts applaud his courage, but this was all part of the creator's plan. Walking backwards, he stumbles and falls to the ground, smashing against the rocks and dying like a fool in front of everyone. They come back into the game, and this time, the participants must vote one more to determine who the real mafias are. The clock starts to tick down like it did previously, and a mystery individual going by the name of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐜 claims to know who the mafias are. The guy really has a brain mutation that gives him the capacity to see the future, and he utilizes this talent to serve as a crisis consultant for major corporations. This is rapidly made clear. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐜 informs the populace that Peter is the true mafia since he was responsible for the murder of Mr. Butcher in retaliation for Mary's passing. The people find it difficult to believe the statements of a stranger, despite the fact that the reasoning appears to make sense. Nonetheless, to their amazement, Peter genuinely concurs with the charge. The crowd starts to laugh at the idiot, but Peter immediately says that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐜 is also a mafia figure. Everyone begins to vote for them both simultaneously as a result, but Peter ultimately receives the bulk of the votes as the main suspect. As he admits that he is also only a citizen, the guy chuckles softly and informs the players that they're grinning triumphantly as 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐜. Peter is thrilled to be able to finally join the lady he loved even as the chair quickly starts to lift the guy into the air. The guy is finally transported by the black sphere towards a large ocean, where Peter awakens aboard a tiny boat surrounded by water. He attempts to escape the predicament by paddling, but the creator notices and immediately pokes a hole in the man's boat, letting water pour in. Even worse, the guy has nowhere to go as multiple sharks encircle him as they start to emerge from the water. Peter chooses to take a chance by using the broken paddle to stab the water animals after realizing he won't make it to shore. This succeeds to harm the animal, causing it to bleed underwater. As a result, all the other sharks start to flock to the blood. As the victim is being swiftly torn to bits by the animals, Peter seizes the opportunity to dive into the water and frantically attempts to swim away. The guy rapidly notices that all the lands are vanishing in front of him as he gets closer to the island. The sharks have all finished devouring their food and are now approaching humans in large numbers. Before being slain by the enormous sharks, Peter starts to glimpse the lady he loves so much as he becomes aware that he is going to die. The game gives participants one more chance to vote before nightfall since they were unable to identify the mafia after 3 innocent bystanders were killed. First to talk is a middle-aged guy named Walter, and it soon becomes clear that he is really a senior army officer with much combat experience. But after losing every one of his soldiers in battle, and believing that he alone is to blame, he swiftly developed psychological instability. Walter starts to belittle the criminal sitting next to him because he hates anyone who break the law, but Ivan keeps insisting that he is innocent. Ivan's genuine offense is revealed by the soldier when Larissa, who perceives the commander as a bully, abruptly interrupts their chat. The young guy was a recent graduate who was partying with his pals when they irresponsibly slammed into the walls with their automobile. Ivan and the driver were both able to escape the explosion that brought them into the courtroom, but 2 of their buddies perished inside the vehicle. Unfortunately, Ivan was immediately condemned to jail since all the witnesses said he was the one driving that night. The cop starts to fight with Larissa and expresses suspicions that both Ivan and the lady are members of the mafia while the young guy cries out for the people to trust him. He casts his vote for the lady swiftly and attempts to get the others to do the same, but his erratic actions just make him seem more suspicious. As a consequence, everyone else votes for him, which ultimately results in the officer being sentenced to death as he yells angrily at every player. He demonstrates to the crowd that he is a fellow innocent citizen and informs everyone that they will all perish. The commander is rapidly being drawn into the dark sphere by the enormous chair, which finally causes him to enter his worst nightmare. When Walter is placed in a situation where he is in charge of all of his troops, the soldiers are rapidly attacked by the adversaries and slaughtered one by one, leaving Walter as the sole survivor. In an effort to rescue his comrades, the officer rushes out to confront the opposition by himself, but he is forced to see the carnage brought on by his negligence. Before Walter gets a chance to grieve, the adversaries in the building soon encircle him, and he is finally shot to death with his companions. The Mafia has decided to choose a new victim after the cop was killed, and as darkness sets over the city, the populace waits impatiently for the outcome. When the lights gradually return, The announcer informs the audience that Larissa has been selected by the Mafia to be the next victim of murder. Despite this, the lady doesn't seem to be frightened. It turns out that Larissa used to be a wonderful wife with a wonderful husband, but when she began drinking by herself, she progressively wrecked everything. She spent several years living alone in her apartment as a result of her addictions, which ultimately led her marriage to fail and her family to desert her. All of this came to an end one day when she was driving down the highway and saw an accident unfold in front of her. She was able to rescue a young guy, who turned out to be Ivan, in the collision. Larissa explains that she was equally accountable for ending the boy's life since she received large sums of money to accuse Ivan of being the driver on false pretenses. Ivan finally resolves to forgive her despite what she done, and she apologizes to him for causing him such suffering. The chair is about to throw the lady into her nightmare as it starts to move her in the direction of the dark sphere. Larissa is carried into the air as she awakens on her own on an airplane, but she rapidly discovers that the vehicle is flying straight towards a powerful storm. The plane's engines ultimately fail, sending it hurtling into the cyclone as the clouds start to resemble an alien creature with tentacles. While telling Larissa not to worry, the flight attendant is rapidly dragged away by the gusts that tore open the whole aircraft and send everyone into a panic. The clouds soon encircle the occupants like a horde of devils and start twisting and tearing the plane to pieces, murdering everyone on board. Only 6 players are left after Larissa dies, and the populace has yet to locate any mafias. 𝐒𝐿 believes that Ivan is unquestionably the culprit since he must have known Larissa from the start and murdered her out of personal retaliation. Contrary to what Katya, a young lady, believes, 𝐒𝐿 may also be to blame since he instructed everyone to vote for Peter at the beginning, who afterwards revealed himself to be a civilian. Surprisingly, instead of disagreeing, 𝐒𝐿 just gives the lady one of his forecasts, stating that when she has nowhere else to flee except into the triangle form. Voting starts off swiftly and is divided evenly between Ivan and 𝐒𝐿, making it impossible to identify a majority. However, what the public did not anticipate was 𝐒𝐿's decision to support himself in the end, which throws all of the participants and the inventor into shock. As a result, he is forced to admit that he is truly a mobster in the game before being led into the enormous black sphere like the prior victims. 𝐒𝐿 is led down a dark staircase where he ultimately discovers a number of mirrors on the wall and is horrified to see his rapid aging. This results in him coughing non-stop and falling to the ground as he steadily ages, yet the guy doesn't seem to be scared. He explains to everyone that this was a part of his strategy after successfully altering the game's path from its predetermined outcome. He contends that the game's developer will ultimately pay for what he done since gamers will eliminate the game in the future. The announcer ignores 𝐒𝐿's warnings as the second round starts, in which the Mafia gets to murder a further victim, even though 𝐒𝐿 ultimately passes away on the ground. The speaker says that the Mafia has picked Ivan to be executed when the lights are turned back on inside the building. The young guy, who is going to pass away, is aware that he has already won since he was able to prove his innocence in front of everyone there, most particularly his own mother. Ivan is taken to the dark sphere of death and placed in a jail cell to be killed despite his innocence while everyone watches in sorrow. However, the guy is able to see his mother again in his vision, this time beaming with pride at her son. Ivan eventually musters the will to face death when he notices the look on his mother's face. All the guns then start firing at him, killing him instantly. There will only be 4 players left when Ivan leaves, so they cannot afford any more errors in the voting procedure, yet nobody appears to be more perplexed than before. Ilya accuses 𝐒𝐿 of collaborating with Katya since the two seem to know one another too well, leading him to believe they are lovers. They really did meet at a pub before the game, proving that they were acquainted before the incident, but 𝐒𝐿 disputes the notion that they are working as a team. Luka now feels that the pair is in control of everyone's destiny as a result of this confirmation, but Katya is unable to decide who they should murder next. As soon as the period expires, the game is obliged to choose a victim at random, who ultimately turns out to be Katya herself. However, Katya also reveals that she is only a civilian. As she is raised into the air, the lady apologizes for failing all the players, but 𝐒𝐿 escapes at the last second as he frantically clings on the woman's chair. The creator observes in wonder as this brings them both into the dark sphere since it has never occurred in the prior games. The guy rapidly regains consciousness and learns that they are standing on nothing but glass after the two are abruptly transported to an unknown area. He encourages the lady not to be scared and approaches her, but as he gets closer, he notices that the whole floor is buckling from under him. The earth starts to crumble right beneath the man's boots as he realizes that time is running out and rushes towards the girl. Just in time, 𝐒𝐻𝐿 is able to save the lady, but they are forced to leap and plunge into the depths. When the guy ultimately awakens, he is shocked to see that they are still alive but learns that they have no idea where they are. However, the triangle Constantine mentioned is quickly seen by the populace, who then determines it must be the only exit. As they enter the valley, the two continue their journey toward the rocks, but the guy soon realizes that something is awry since countless tentacles are starting to encircle them. The people instantly flee in a frantic attempt to avoid the monsters as a result of this. The boss music starts to play as the two finally make it past the rocks and into a big field, where a huge lava monster emerges and begins to creep toward them. The creature attacks the guy repeatedly with its claws as 𝐒𝐻𝐿 orders the girl to get away as he moves in to confront his darkest fear. Fortunately, 𝐒𝐻𝐿 is able to avoid the threat just in time. He then realizes that the creature is vulnerable to sunlight, which causes its skin to dissolve. As soon as he spots the necklace on the enemy's head, the guy is able to come up with a strategy, which prompts him to dash up to the monster and climb atop its arm. As the beast charges in to attack him vehemently, 𝐒𝐻𝐿 leaps in and snatches the necklace before collapsing to the ground. The monster is promptly brought to justice by burning its corpse and reducing it into dust once the guy takes a risk and shines the light in its direction. They are swallowed by a massive cyclone that finally transports them toward the creator when he removes the necklace and attaches it to the device that completes the puzzle on the wall. On the other hand, the statement informs the viewers that the Mafia has triumphed since the murderer is still alive even if there is only one remaining civilian. The author reveals that this was all part of his plan, therefore this is not the real ending for 𝐒𝐻𝐿 and 𝐾𝐞. Because viewers were becoming sick of the same results in the program, he purposefully enabled the guy to escape from his chair so that the impossible may occur during the game. He also discloses that their bodies are still in the dark sphere and grants them one more chance to survive, but he forewarns them that he will always be the one in charge of the game. Ilya is sometimes able to return to his family after rapidly admitting that he was ultimately a member of the Mafia, allowing him to leave $1 billion for them before passing away. As 𝐒𝐻𝐿 intends to re-enter the game in order to put an end to the show that utilizes human lives as entertainment, the public is unaware that Constantine was correct to change history. Please share your thoughts about this movie in the comments section. And if you like my movies, please click like and subscribe. I'll talk to you all again soon.